Here on With All Due Respect, we love interviewing candidates, surrogates, journalists, and of course, award-winning singer-songwriters. Right now, we're joined by Sheryl Crow, the founder of the Make It Short campaign, which is trying to limit the length of election cycles. We got a feeling you're not the only one, Sheryl.
Nicely executed,
Thank you for
John.
being here. I got my question here. It says all you want to do is shorten the election season. There's a whole thing here that I'm not going to do. But why?
Thank you.
Why do you want to do this? Why does this matter?
Because I have two young boys. I've spent a lot of time in the last 2 years hurtling over the couch to make sure I get to the remote control before they land on something that I don't want them to see or hear.
By which you mean some Donald Trump rhetoric? Is that the kind of thing you're thinking
I
of?
just think it's been a really divisive campaign. Lots of hate speech. Kids are very privy to that. In fact, one day my 9-year-old came home from school and asked me if I would be voting for the liar or the crazy man. And I grew up at a time when I feel like the office of the President of the United States should be an office that's respected. What's happened in the last 2 years is not any more informative than it would have been if it had been a year or even 6 months. We're not learning anything new today that we would have learned 6 months ago. So I feel like we've got to use some ingenuity. We've got to pull our major two parties together and talk about a way to reform the situation. And I know that I'm not the only one that feels this way.
So let's say Hillary Clinton wins and the day after the election, Ted Cruz says, I'm going to Iowa and New Hampshire.
And I don't doubt that he will.
Yeah. How do you?
Yes.
How could you stop that?
I am in the long haul. I'm in this for the long haul. I want to see people really use their voices. I want to see people sign our petition and take their voices to Capitol Hill and do something about this. I don't think there's anyone that thinks that this is a healthy situation. The kind of hate rhetoric that we've seen has been really damaging to the political process. And I think there's a way, if you look at other countries, to create a process that we could feel proud of. I mean, other countries have much shorter political processes. And with social media and all these formats for news and information dissemination, we have to be ingenious about this.
So you got Canada just had its longest election. It was like 11 weeks, right? You know, the British election systems are famously, they call it an election. You have a few weeks of campaigning and then it's over. A lot of people find that appealing. Here we have the First Amendment, right? Where you're allowed to basically say whatever you want, including buying commercials, go around the country. So even if you shortened the system, the American system, and said, let's have it look more like the British system. Again, to Mark's point, how could you stop without violating the First Amendment? How do you stop candidates from doing whatever they want? If they want to campaign until the next election and go out and spend money and travel around the country, how can you stop them?
Well, I'm definitely not a policymaker. I don't want to infringe on freedom of speech at all. When I was a kid, our curfew was set at 10:30, and I would always say, Dad, I want to stay out. Nothing good happens after 10:30. I mean, this is how I feel about this. If you want to go out and spend a ton of money and throw your name in the hat for this length of time, I think it undermines your message. We've gotten so far away from issues as it is that now it's just entertainment, and certainly no one benefits from a 2-year election except for maybe media outlets and marketing people who work on elections.
I bet about $1 million you violated that curfew, about $1 million.
That was a really good girl.
We're resisting the urge to point out you'd be putting us largely out of business if this happened. So you got.
I know. What are you going to do the day after?
You got a petition. What else? How else do you envision this actually happening besides people signing your petition?
Well, listen, I'm a mom. I'm a mom of 2 kids. I know I'm not the only one that feels this way. There has to be a way for us to put our minds together and look at the primary season. We can't put all the primaries on one day, which was one of the original ideas I had. Hey, let's shorten it. Right. But then we would lose people like President Obama if he were up against someone who's self-funding. I would like to see a day off for everyone, including schools, where we go and vote. It's more fair. There are a lot of issues with our election that could be fixed, and maybe it's time to look at some of those things. But 2 years is too long, and I think the climate that it's created has just been extremely damaging.
I don't have any doubt that a lot of other people feel the same way you do, especially after this campaign. But do you think this is just kind of an artifact of the Trump-Clinton election? I mean, did you feel this way about the Obama-McCain election 8 years ago? Boy, I wish that had been shorter when Barack Obama was coming up.
I'll tell you, the last election, that was the first time I'd seen campaigns of real hate rhetoric. And listen, I sound like a dinosaur when I say this. I grew up with Walter Cronkite, like 6:30 News. I grew up with the debates. We had many less options for finding information. We had newspapers and we had the evening news. And we sat around and we had conversations and we talked in our communities. It was much more civilized. I don't think that we're learning anything more by it being 2 years than if it were 8 months.
Of all the songs you've written and sung, which is the one that most applies to this election? You got about 20 seconds to think about it.
God bless this mess.
All right, God bless this mess.
And
That's
if people
not
want to
bad.
sign your petition, what do they do?
They go to change.org/makeitshort.
Make it short.
Yes.
And you'd like it really short, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I'd like for it to be about 4 days.
Yeah,
no,
especially this
no, I
election,
want it to
yeah.
be fair, and I want everyone to have an opportunity to speak. But I think, listen, we know our candidates' issues, we know their experience. So, do we need to drag it out this long?